All right, let us look at this week's recap. The show name is Today, This Week. We're going to have a look at what happened and what is it that we talked about this week. There's a lot that we've been talking about. If you were not here this week or you didn't get a chance to look at what we talked about this week, you can just check my profile and don't forget to follow, to like, and to share. All right. So this week we touched on powerful truths, whereby we had 3 highlights that stood out. The first highlight is that South Africa is indeed a stolen land. We also touched on the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and the African way of life before colonialism. These are not just stories from the past or the present. They shape how we see ourselves, how the world sees us as a people, abantu, as you would say. Let us begin with the very interesting but very controversial matter. A lot of people may have not looked into this, but it's the reality. South Africa's story is written on stolen soil. Before 1910, this land was not South Africa, people. It was a tapestry of nations: AmaXhosa, AmaZulu, Basotho, Botswana, Khoi, and San, each with their own names, languages, and territories. But the Union government of 1910 redrew the map of these lands and nations. They forced different nations into one container called South Africa. This was not unity at all, it was domination. They wanted to put them in concentrated areas so they can rule over them. They renamed rivers, towns, and mountains, erasing stories that lived the century, or for centuries, rather. Think of places like Bani, named Port Elizabeth, or Kokomani, once called Queenstown, or is still called Queenstown. Even our capital cities, they carried names of people that we don't know. The capital cities carried names of people who are not coming from here. What happens when you take away people's names? You silence memory. You take their identity and you write over it with your own. But today, movements for renaming are reclaiming the truth, honestly speaking. As much people are having a problem with that process because they're saying there's a lot of money that is being wasted. We are now having names such as Gqeberha, Komani, Makanda. Each new name is an act of healing, an act of remembrance, remembering our past, our ancestral land. A reminder that South Africa is not a name born of the people. It is just a mere a title that is written on stolen land. Because South Africa came after a long struggle, and during the struggle, a lot of people were displaced, forgot where they're coming from. So to understand the present, we must face that history. All right. Yeah, enough about the stolen land. Now let's go to another attempt of stealing land, the Middle East, and the conflict that is facing it today. We also this week have reminded we were reminded of the global conflict in Yemen. Israel strikes hit the capital of Yemen and in the province, in one of the provinces there, and 9 people were killed. More than 100 people were injured. Families torn apart overnight. And this is not the first time. In recent months, Israel has expanded its strikes beyond Palestine, hitting Syria, Lebanon, even clashing with Iran's influence. The Middle East has become a chessboard of power, but the pawns are always ordinary people. Children losing parents, homes reduced to rubble, hospitals overwhelmed. Sometimes they are even bombed. When we hear conflict, it sounds distant. But when we say 9 people killed, that is 9 lives, 9 stories cut short. This can happen to anyone in any country. When we say 118 injured, that is 118 families left in fear. This conflict isn't just about borders, people. It's about human survival. It is about who has the right to live with dignity. And as Africa, we cannot ignore it. We cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening right now because the struggles of one region they echo in another. Displacement, loss of land, foreign domination. We know this story too. We know it very well. In the Middle East and what is happening there should be reminding us that peace is not luxury, but peace is necessary. Now, let us move to the very dear story. This story is dear to me. African lifestyle before colonialism. Now, as we step back in time, before the borders, before the flags, before colonialism itself, we have to picture Africa, even though the word Africa itself didn't exist when I'm talking about this particular time in life. We want to talk about the natural state of this great land, which is now named Africa. Men and women were walking barefoot on the soil and they were connected to the earth. Children climbing trees, not for play alone, but to fetch fruits, wild figs, amarula, bob, pads, and communities gathering under trees for storytelling, passing wisdom from one elder to the young. There was no rush to own land, land owned us. There was no rush to build fences, nature was the boundary. We had rivers, we had mountains. Food also came from the ground, water from the rivers, shelter from the forest. We never had difficulties with breathing or respiratory system. That was a life balance. No supermarkets, but abundance. No clocks, but time was measured by the sun, the moon, the season, the events. Boom, nightmare came. Colonialism brought walls, borders, and chains. But before that, there was freedom. Not the freedom written in laws, but the freedom lived in everyday life. When we speak of going back to nature, We are not dreaming, we are remembering. We are connecting to a rhythm that was always ours. We are becoming nature itself. In closing, I'd like to say please don't forget to like, to follow, and to share. We've looked at three highlights on one truth that South Africa's stolen land teaches us memory. The Middle East conflict also touches on our memories as well, as we have experienced similar situation as South Africans. And the African lifestyle before colonialism teaches us the same memory and life balance. History, present, and heritage, they are all connected. So, with that being said, I'd like to say this week's recap has come to an end. These are not just news, but this is life. Thank you for listening and watching. See you on the next one.